Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. Guys, it is week number 2 for the 2021 NHL season, mid-season power rankings. We're going to be taking a look at that in this video. If you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL and power ranking videos like this, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. And let's take a look at week 2's NHL power rankings. So it seems like we're starting to get a better landscape of what the NHL rankings will look like on a more consistent basis after this week. We're 2 weeks in, and we're seeing some teams really rise up, and a lot of teams that really tanked once again this week, because it is still early. I would say for the first month of power rankings, we're going to see a lot of teams shoot their way up. Maybe I had them a little too low, and excuse me, and some teams that just shoot really far down, and you'll be seeing that combination as we go through. Hint, the Habs jersey. Okay, so we're going to start things up at number 31. As is not the Dallas Stars this week like it was last week. Dallas did not play a game. That's why they were last. That is no longer the case. This is a normal spot for this team because they spent most of last season at this spot. At number 31 is the Detroit Red Wings. Now, the issue with the Red Wings is with how they played against the Chicago Blackhawks this week, who, spoiler alert, are not that much further up than them. They got smashed by the Chicago Blackhawks in their most recent series this past weekend. I believe it was 10 goals for Chicago to 2 or 3 for Detroit in those 2 games. That's abysmal. And Chicago is not that good. Chicago looked a lot better this week because of their Detroit games, but it really showed me Detroit is still struggling. We see it, and the way they got pounded in by Dallas last night, this is going to be another long season in Detroit. A lot of excitement, a lot of young potential, and a lot of expectations moving forward, but for this season, once again, Detroit, they showed some promise last week, but that promise kind of got whittled away this week for this very young, inexperienced Red Wings team. At number 30, not too different from last year either, is the Ottawa Senators at number 30 in this week's power rankings. The Ottawa Senators are showing us right now they're not far off from Detroit in terms of they just are not there yet. They're still just struggling with certain things. Their record is abysmal. There are certain things about the Ottawa that just really concern me. The fact that they cannot compete in that division is going to be really tough. And DJ Smith, the head coach, is going to have his work cut out for him. They're 1-6-1 to start the season, a minus 19 goal differential. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yes, that is the worst in the NHL. So if this is what we're going to see from Ottawa this season, talk about a long season. Ottawa is in for one. And I wouldn't be surprised if next week, if this keeps up, Ottawa ends up being the worst team in the NHL. At number 29, on a little bit of a brighter note at the bottom of the standings, they are not the worst team in the standings, or second last for the past 2 weeks. They move up to the third worst. Congratulations, Chicago. The Chicago Blackhawks are number 29 in the power rankings this week. The Chicago Blackhawks, like I said, we talked about them with their series with Detroit. They played well. Give them some credit. They were able to score some goals. They beat Detroit, and they picked up 2 important wins in that Central Division. And they, at this point, remain competitive as they have the same amount of points as the Tampa Bay Lightning. To be fair, Tampa has played 3 less games than the Blackhawks. But hey, take a moral victory when you can if you're Chicago this season. So, not a terrible start. Not a great start. If you look at the grand picture, they're only 2 points behind the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are at the top of that Central Division. So there are things to be excited about for this team. Take everything with a grain of salt. But again, we have to get a little bit more of a bigger picture with Chicago, besides playing a team like the Detroit Red Wings. At number 28 in the power rankings is the Arizona Coyotes. Not worthy of a howl, guys. The Arizona Coyotes are not doing well. They've really struggled. They find themselves 3-4-1 to start the season. They're second worst in the Honda West division. Not a great start for the Arizona Coyotes. You know, there's certain points where they show promise and then they fall off the rails. Now, to be fair, they did pick up a big victory against a team like the Anaheim Ducks, which is promising for the Coyotes. There's still some promise there. They did beat the Vegas Golden Knights a couple weeks ago, but there are other underlying things with Arizona that I am quite concerned about. There's going to be a little bit of frustration there. They got to really put it together this week. They have a couple of big games against Colorado, 4 straight games. 2 games on the road, 2 games at home against a team like Colorado, who's projected to be at least top 2 in this division. So this is going to be huge for the Arizona Coyotes this week. Moving on up to number 27 is the San Jose Sharks. The San Jose Sharks find themselves sitting at the bottom of the Honda West division. They're a weird team. They're able to beat a team like St. Louis. They're able to beat a team like Colorado, but then they fall off the rails and they lose to LA, or they lose to San Jose, or they lose to another team. Like, you got to find a way to win more games, and that's been consistently a bit of an issue for the St. Louis Blues. They're one of those teams right now where I see the signs of inconsistency, and I think that's going to be a problem. Again, they've had a pretty tough schedule. They played LA, who's looked like, quite honestly, the best California team this season right now. You've played Colorado. You've played teams that, St. Louis, they've been playing some of the better teams in that division. So to be fair, I'll give the San Jose Sharks some credit. They've played very well and competitive in most of their games so far. But there are some games like that one Colorado game or the game against LA last week where they were getting pounded. They did come back late, but you were down 5-1 to the LA Kings. Let's hold up here a little bit, San Jose. So these are the kind of things with San Jose I get a little bit concerned with the San Jose Sharks, but we'll see what happens. There's definitely some promise, but I'm seeing the goaltending is becoming a big issue for the Sharks. At number 26 is the Anaheim Ducks. It's the Anaheim Ducks on the outside looking in this year's playoffs right now, early in this season. They have been probably the second best, the middle child of that California that California group. They're mediocre. John Gibson has been really solid, but again, they don't have enough punch up front, and I think that's been a problem. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Trevor Zegras came into the lineup by the end of this season. Once the trade deadline comes around, potentially a trade. We could see a Rickard Rakell, Adam Henrique, or Ryan Getzlaf get moved out, so we see a little bit more of Sam Steele, Troy Terry, Trevor Zegras as a center in the top 6 for the Anaheim Ducks. So we'll see what happens, but I think there is some issues with the offensive side of things for the Ducks, and that's been pretty apparent throughout the early part of this season. And now the other California team at number 25 is the LA Kings. So take the moral victory where you can, LA. You are the best California team, but you're still 25 in the power rankings. So the LA Kings have shown a lot of promise. Last night, best wishes, holy God. I forgot who got hit in the face with the puck. Took a Matt Dumba shot right in the face. Blood all over the place. I thought he cut his neck open. There was blood because I was playing Xbox and I'm watching the game and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? He was just bleeding all over the ice, and you could tell all the players, it was a little bit of a draining moment after that, and it ended up working out for Minnesota. Minnesota ended up coming out strong, getting the victory. LA kind of got deflated after that. They were down a defenseman with the practical side of things, and obviously, trying to track that out of your brain while your player's gushing blood, trying to get to the bench. I'm surprised he didn't faint. That was unbelievable. So best wishes. Hopefully he gets healed up and comes back to the LA Kings. But tough road for the Kings so far. Kind of just that is basically where the LA Kings stand right now. Quite honestly. So number 24, not too far. Well, pretty much on the opposite coast. At number 24 is the New Jersey Devils. The New Jersey Devils definitely regressed this week. They did pick up a win against the New York Islanders Sunday, which is good. But now we're starting to see once we get to the Islanders. But the Islanders have definitely not been the team that I was hoping they would be. So that victory against the Isles for the Devils doesn't really count as much. The Devils have been just a mediocre team in their division. They find themselves with 7 points, 3-3-1 on the season. There's rumors that they could go pick up another defenseman. You look at what Ty Smith and Jack Hughes are doing right now. Not to mention if Yegor Sharangovich starts getting going again. The New Jersey Devils look pretty solid, and the goaltending has been pretty solid despite Mackenzie Blackwood being on COVID protocol for a while. So once he comes back healthy, this is going to be a really solid New Jersey Devils team. I'm excited to see what happens, but they do find themselves at number 24 in the power rankings. At number 23 is, not too far down the road from the Devils, the New York Rangers. Now, the New York Rangers showed some promise. Alexis Lafreniere picking up the OT winner last night. His first NHL goal up at First Niagara Center up in Buffalo. But they did lose the game prior to that in a shootout. They have been one of those teams where the Rangers, I'm not really sure where they stand right now. I think the first couple games they really struggled. They did get that win against the Islanders, which was an outlier. They really struggled against Pittsburgh, giving up leads late. Shesterkin has not looked that great. Georgiev hasn't looked that great either, so might be a scheme thing for the Rangers. And the first two lines seem to be getting things going right now. Chris Kreider gets some goals. Mika Zibanejad starting to score, and now we see Alexis Lafreniere get his first NHL goal. So, is this a sign of them picking things up? Was it because they were playing the Buffalo Sabres? Was it a combination of both? I don't necessarily know, but the Rangers are in a weird spot, and that's to be expected. Because at number 22, speaking of teams, I don't really know where they stand still. Even after watching them, they've shown promise, but they've also lost games, like losing to the Rangers last night, is the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres are just, I think, slightly better than the New York Rangers. And that's because I think Linus Ullmark is showing us that he can be a starting goaltender here. Now, again, it's early in the season. Let's hold our horses here. He did show some issues against the Washington Capitals in that series. But again, talking about the Washington Capitals, who are one of the better teams in the league right now. But I think the gap between the Rangers and the Sabres is very, very minuscule. And I really like what I've seen in spades from the Buffalo Sabres. Taylor Hall's looked like a nice addition. Victor Olofsson is playing pretty well also. Obviously, Jack Eichel. We know what Jack Eichel is going to do. But I think Linus Ullmark has been the standout for the Buffalo Sabres here to start this season. Dylan Cousins getting scratched a couple of times. I'm wondering what's going on there. But the Buffalo Sabres overall, there's promise. But again, I think they were hoping for a little more from a guy like Dylan Cousins this season. And we're starting to see them fall back to guys like Eric Stahl. And who's the other guy they picked up? Grigorenko. They're starting to fall back to those guys because their center depth gets depleted a little bit. At number 21 is the Vancouver Canucks. Now, the Canucks, they're weird because I didn't want to move them up too much, and I didn't want to move them down because they were winning against Ottawa. They were kicking their ass. But we're talking about the Ottawa Senators, who, like I just mentioned, are 30th out of 31 teams in the power rankings this week. So, how quality of victory are those for the Canucks? They're wins. And at the end of the day, divisional victories are huge. And you picked up 3, so that's huge for the Vancouver Canucks. Braden Holtby getting victories. They're scoring goals. Pettersson seems to be going. Brock Besser's going. They have the Lotto line seeming like it's on fire. But again, it's Ottawa. So we'll see how they do this week. I'm more excited to see what they look like. I'm definitely going to be watching some more Vancouver because I didn't watch them much. They were kicking the Ottawa Senators' ass. I was like, why am I going to watch this? I'd rather watch some close games in the Central between Tampa and Columbus, or Florida and Columbus for that matter. So the Canucks, it seems like they're starting to get things going, but I'm a little bit on the fence, so I didn't move them up very much. At number 20 is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, the Penguins are kind of in a similar situation as Vancouver, as they came out of the gate, they came out so-so, and then they take on the New York Rangers, who are a bottom feeder right now in my power rankings. So, how quality of those wins were those for Pittsburgh. Tristan Jarry did show signs of weakness. He gave up those 3 goals in 5 minutes to the Rangers in that first game they played. He was able to hold up the fort for other moments, but again, even in the second game, he let up a couple bad goals. Like, Tristan Jarry has been all over the place there in Pittsburgh, very inconsistent, and I can't put this team any higher up than number 20 right now. At number 19, I cannot believe I am saying this, but at number 19 is the Columbus Blue Jackets, the leaders of the Central Division. First off, they're leading a division. Second of all, they're in the Central Division. Now, that's maybe not too much of a shock to most of you, but to me, it's a little bit surprising, considering they've been in the Metro. But anyway, the Columbus Blue Jackets are at number 19. The Blue Jackets are one of those teams where, again, talk about inconsistent. I'm still trying to figure them out. They're going to look different when Patrick Laine and Jack Roslovic come into the lineup. But even goaltending has been a little bit weird. Their defense, everything's been a little bit just awkward. I feel like that's the best word to use. I feel like I'm not doing it justice, but Columbus is still awkward. They're at the top of that division, which is very competitive. By Sunday they could be third or fourth in that division. It's just so wide open right now in the Central. But Columbus has shown me some things that I have to admit I'm pretty impressed. Now, the only reason at 17 and 18 these teams are in the same Central Division as Columbus but are higher up in the standings is they have unfortunately played less games, which they have a lesser sample size. So in terms of points overall, Columbus is first in that division, but to be fair, they've also played the most games out of most of those teams in that division besides Chicago, which is at the bottom of the power rankings like you guys already know. So at number 18, we have the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers have just been doing the right thing. They're doing what they have to do. They haven't been anything super special, but they're 3-0-1. They've picked up points in all of their games this season. They have 7 points. They're a +4 this season. What else do you want? They're doing what they have to do, and they're finding a way to get things done. I mean, you look at their power play, 11th in the league at 25%. That's not too bad considering we're talking about the Panthers. I think the one concern is their penalty kill at 71.4%, 25th in the NHL. That's a bit of a weakness. But again, the Florida Panthers, they're moving their way up the rankings, and I do like what we're seeing from them. At number 17 is the Nashville Predators. The Nashville Predators are at number 17 in this week's rankings. The Nashville Predators are in a heck of a spot, though, because you look at their power play, 7.1% on the power play this season. That's 29th in the NHL. The only 2 teams behind them right now are the Minnesota Wild and the Anaheim Ducks. Penalty kill is not too much better, if I'm going to be completely honest. They find themselves worst in the NHL on the penalty kill, 61.5%, 31st in the NHL, so yikes. So there's some alarming stats there for Nashville. They're one of those teams, again, they're in the Central Division. They're technically in a playoff spot right now, but they've had 7 games played, where you have Dallas and Florida who are behind them and in front of them, and they have around the same amount of points. So there is some trouble in Nashville right now. Tampa Bay has only played 5 games. I assume they're going to get in the postseason. Carolina's only played 4 games. They're only 2 points behind the Nashville Predators. So there is some concern with me and Nashville. Don't be surprised if Nashville slips in the power rankings next week. If they have a bad week, or even if they have a mediocre week, they're going to find themselves behind teams like the Florida Panthers, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Canucks, and the Pittsburgh Penguins very quickly. Here we go. At number 16 in this week's power rankings is the New York Islanders. I'm going to be doing an entire video on the Islanders today, and I'm probably going to get more into this, so if there's a teaser to that, you're going to see that this weekend. The Islanders suck. They suck right now, and I don't know what the fuck happened this past week. You just played a Washington Capitals team that didn't have Alexander Ovechkin, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Dmitry Orlov, and Ilya Samsonov. And you blew both of those games. Literally blew. I was going to do something. Thank God I didn't do that gesture. The Islanders sucked this week. They lost to the New Jersey Devils, and they showed nothing in that game Sunday. And then you have the balls to come back Tuesday and Thursday, and put up horrible games against Washington. I didn't watch the game yesterday, but what the hell happened? Thank God I didn't watch that game, because my head might be through the freaking TV screen right now if I was watching that game. Looked like they played a really solid first period. You score 3 goals. My Dogecoin is going up. I'm on cloud 9. Welcome to the year of Kevin Forte. And then they come out in the second period and give up 6 unanswered goals. Zdeno Chara, 45 years old, 46 years old. How old is that guy? He's freaking put him in crutches. And he scores his goal, and they don't even have their top players. They don't even have their starting goaltender. They have the Hershey Bears, who is their third-string goaltender going into this season behind Henrik Lundqvist. And he wins both games for the Capitals. Guys, I'm going to be talking about that in that video, so this is just a spoiler to that. The Islanders suck right now, and Barry Trotz has got to figure this shit out, because the Islanders suck right now. Their offense sucks. Their second line is brutal. That's enough said. Let's move on with this power rankings. All right, so moving up to number 15 is the Edmonton Oilers. On a little bit brighter of a note for the Edmonton Oilers compared to those fucking Islanders. The Edmonton Oilers, guys, they have shown some promising, things. I mean, they lost that game against Toronto. They should have gotten a point in that game. You got to get that to overtime. You score 2 goals late to tie the game back up, and then you give up a late goal again. You can't get away with that. The good news is we're seeing the depth scoring. We saw Zach Kassian get on the board, his first of the season. Congratulations to the big Cass getting a big goal, number 44 in front of the net. But then they give up 2 goals, after scoring those big goals to tie it. What can you say? And again, another questionable move by the coaching staff there. Dave Tippett not questioning that late whistle. They should have put more time on the clock. There was 2.6 seconds. They probably could have put it to 4 or 5 seconds. Again, at the end of the day, they lost the face-off, and it may not have mattered, but Dave Tippett didn't do anything about that offsides goal the other night against Toronto, and now he doesn't do anything about this late whistle. You don't have to be a dick to the refs, but you have to at least mouth off a little bit so they see what's going on. I think that was a mistake by Dave Tippett. I don't know. Edmonton's starting to fall here. That goaltending's been an issue. But the good positive part is we're seeing the offense coming from the bottom 6 a little bit. And that's very promising for the Edmonton Oilers. So we'll leave it on a good note for the Oilers. At number 14 in this week's Power Rankings is the big, bad Boston Bruins, who currently sit second in the Mass Mutual East Division. They are 5-1-1 to start this season. Thank you very much. Their penalty kill is the best in the NHL at 93.1%, and their power play is 4th in the NHL at 36.4%. The Boston Bruins are doing what they have to do. They're not doing it the pretty way. They've definitely lost a lot of skill in the offseason and experience, but they find a way to get things done. Give them some credit. The Boston Bruins, I was on the fence about the Bruins going into this season. They lost Torrey Krug, Zdeno Chara. They lost some pieces, and they still find a way to get things done. So give them some credit, and give credit to the Boston Bruins. They are doing some really solid work right now. Moving up to number 13 in this week's Power Rankings is the Calgary Flames. As the Calgary Flames are turning heads right now. The Flames are just quietly sitting there. They're 2-3-1 on the season, but they're one of those teams where I think we're going to see them. Right now they just lost to the Habs 4-2 last night. Not their best game. They went down 4-0. They did score 2 goals to come back, but again, that's part of it. They lose to the Maple Leafs 4-3 on Tuesday. A close-fought game there. They lose 3-2 to the Leafs. Like, they've been playing the top teams in that division. I don't consider them to be one of the top teams in that division, but based off of the teams they've been playing, teams like Montreal, Toronto, those honestly are the top 2 teams in that North division. So Calgary is obviously not top 2, but I think they're probably closer to 4th, maybe 3rd in that division, based off of Vancouver really slipping up. I would even say Winnipeg is ahead of them, so they're probably more fitted at 4th in this division. I think they could move up in the standings, in the power rankings, maybe 1 or 2 spots potentially next week. Based off of the teams they've played, I didn't really penalize them too much. At number 12 is the Minnesota Wild. So the Minnesota Wild are starting to regress slightly as we're starting to see the standings align in that West division. They sit 3rd in that division now, 5-3 to start the season. They have 10 points, only 1 behind the Vegas Golden Knights, but the Golden Knights did play 1 less game. They're a +4 goal differential, which is solid, but they have some issues. Their penalty kill is solid, 86.7%. That's 8th best in the NHL. But then you look at their power play. Their power play is definitely a concern right now, especially with Kirill Kaprizov coming in. 30th in the NHL. Only the Anaheim Ducks are behind them with a 5.9 percentage there. That is not good enough. But again, in that division, I think they have the luxury of a little bit of a struggle here and there because that division is pretty wide open in the West. It's Vegas, Colorado, and Minnesota. And you look at my preseason rankings, I pretty much called that. So it's only week 2, so I'm not a genius quite yet, but it's looking pretty solid right now in that regard. And we may see this standings kind of stay the way it is. I wouldn't be surprised in that West division. At number 11, we've got the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, the Flyers are a weird team. Kind of reminds me of Calgary. The Philadelphia Flyers, the thing with the Flyers that concerns me the most is the breakdown we saw, last weekend against the Bruins. Carter Hart kind of freaking out, breaking his stick into 4 or 5 pieces. Alain Vigneault saying I have to do a better job. And unlike another team in their division, the New York Islanders, they took care of business this week against the New Jersey Devils, beating the Devils in both of their games up in Newark. They won the first game by a score of 5-3 in pretty convincing fashion. And last night they took care of business in a 3-1 victory where the Devils they literally doubled them in shots. 34 shots for the Devils to the Flyers 17. But at the end of the day, the only stat sheet that matters is the goals, and the Philadelphia Flyers put up more than the New Jersey Devils. So a good game there for the Flyers. They seem to be getting things going. We're seeing depth guys step into the lineup. Giroux gets his first NHL goal. Nate Prosser gets a goal, which Lehigh Valley Phantoms captain. Congratulations there. JVR already picking up some goals. He picked up 2 goals, his 4th and 5th of the season for the Flyers in the last game. Joel Farabee getting on the board. Nolan Patrick with a pair of goals on the season. There is a lot of promise for the Flyers right now. I'm excited to see what happens. They regressed in my power rankings because of last weekend, but they've taken care of business enough to where I could see them easily moving up in next week's power rankings. At number 10 is the St. Louis Blues. Talk about a team like Calgary where they show really promising signs but then really inconsistent in others. That's been the story with the Blues. And man, if I were to bet money on this team winning the Stanley Cup, if the odds are low enough, I would maybe take that waiver because you look what they did last Tuesday. They beat the Vegas Golden Knights 5-4 in a shootout, which is pretty impressive. We know how good Vegas is. Now, they've most recently got their most recent game last night against Vegas postponed due to COVID situations in the Vegas organization. But then Sunday, they lose 6-3 to LA. So they're one of those teams where they're going to be a little bit inconsistent this season. They've got some different players. They added Torrey Krug. They just look like a different blue line. They've got a lot of questions about Binnington because coming into this season, last season was not great for Binner, so he had to really prove himself this year. He's been doing that, so give him some credit for that. But this is a team right now in St. Louis where just inconsistency, and that could be an issue long term. At number 9 is the Toronto Maple Leafs, baby. At number 9 in this week's power rankings. Now, The Maple Leafs are another team. They've been taking care of business. They're 7-2 to start the season, 14 points. They sit at the top of the Scotia North Division. To be fair, the teams that are most close to them in Winnipeg and Montreal, who are both 2 points and 4 points behind them in the standings, have played 2 less games. So once we see those teams kind of get going, I think that's going to change the storyline. They're a +5 goal differential, so give Toronto what they want there. They're doing good in that category. You look at their power play. Good power play as usual in Toronto. 42.9% on the power play. Second best in the NHL. No big deal. Their penalty kill continues to be an issue. It's in the middle of the pack. It's 16th overall, 78.4%. But they're taking care of business where they have to, which is really, at the end of the day, the power play and scoring goals. At number 8 is the Carolina Hurricanes, as the Hurricanes have really turned a corner over the past couple seasons, but they still find themselves in a weird spot because of the games played. They've only played 4 games this season. They're 3-1 on the season. They have 6 points. They're a +4 this season. Their power play is okay. Their penalty kill, really solid, second best in the NHL behind the Boston Bruins, a little over 91%, so good job there for the Hurricanes. And goaltending's been pretty solid, so what can you say about the Hurricanes right now? Just good stuff. At number 7 is the Winnipeg Jets, as they sit behind the Toronto Maple Leafs in the standings. But you watch this team on the power play. They are smoking other teams right now. And I don't know what the heck they are doing. I don't know what's going on. But the Winnipeg Jets sit 14th on the power play. But maybe it was because they were playing Ottawa. But they were putting on a clinic against the Ottawa Senators in that recent series. Just dusting the Ottawa Senators earlier this week. The Ottawa Senators' woes were really put on display in that series against Winnipeg. And Winnipeg was just clapping along, clapping the Ottawa Senators to sleep. And a really rough performance by Ottawa. But the Winnipeg Jets took full advantage, absolutely dominating. Pierre-Luc Dubois coming into Winnipeg, a lot of excitement there. So we'll see what happens. But things are going to get quite interesting in that situation in Winnipeg. At number 6 in this week's Power Rankings is the Colorado Avalanche, as the Avalanche sits second in that division, only 1 point behind the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, the Colorado Avalanche are one of those teams, again, they play games that are really good, and then they lose 4-2 to Colorado this week. Like last week, I just don't understand why. They need to be more consistent. They lose 3-1 to Anaheim on Sunday. They beat San Jose 7-3 on Tuesday. Last night they did play and they beat the Sharks 3-0. So it's just one of those things where this team is just going to be inconsistent. Like I said, a lot of different guys in the organization. We're going to see that happen. So it's just part of the situation, but really, I gotta say, the Avalanche, they're like the Blues. They're gonna win a lot of great games against the bigger opponents, but they're also gonna lose games to teams they should beat. So that's just been the situation out there in the West. At number 5, this team is gonna get their own video this weekend, and they deserve it because the Dallas Stars had a lot of questions going into this season. They had so much turmoil before the whole COVID protocol. You start the season, you're hearing that Ben Bishop, your starting goaltender, and Tyler Seguin, not only is he a freaking rocket, but he's one of your top 2 centers on your team. They're both out with surgery, having surgery in the end of last year, going to be out 5 or 6 months. And then right when we get into training camp, 16 or 17 players test positive, and they have to shut down for 2 weeks to start the season. They started off pretty much as bad as it gets. But they look like an absolute wagon out there. They are playing so well right now. And they followed it up last night. A 7-3 victory over Detroit. A 2-1 victory over Detroit. This past weekend, a 3-2 victory over Nashville. And last Friday, a 7-0 touchdown victory over the Nashville Predators to start their season. Not to mention, they have the best power play, the best penalty kill in the NHL. Their goaltenders on fire. Jake Ottinger getting his first NHL start last night. So that was pretty cool. Gets his first NHL win. Congratulations, Jake O, on the big victory. But this has been a really weird situation. The Dallas Stars it seems like they haven't been here in months, but everybody's scoring. You're seeing Pavelski get on the board. You're seeing Rupe Hintz get on the board. Denis Gurianov. In the bottom six, you have Andrew Cogliano scoring goals. Joel Lesperant. Like, everybody's scoring goals. What else could you want? Jason Dickinson getting the game winner against Detroit earlier this week. Like, Dallas just is playing like Dallas. And I don't know if it's because they have fans. I don't know what it is, but the Stars, they're playing really well right now. At number 4 in this week's power rankings, I'm not going to talk about them much because I'm a little bit salty at them. The Washington Capitals. Vitek Vanacek has come in to replace Ilya Samsonov here to start the season, and he's been really solid. He's been picking up victories left and right. The Capitals have really rallied around that COVID situation with their captain, as well as some of their fellow stars like Kuznetsov, Orlov, and Samsonov. And they're finding ways to get wins. A team in the Islanders, they pretty much dummied them the past 2 games. They've been taking care of business. They beat the New Jersey Devils last week, the Buffalo Sabres. They're doing what they have to do when they find themselves at the top of the Gauntlet Division, the Beast Division, the Division of Death. All these names for that East Division, and they're at the top of that right now with 14 points. At number 3 in the power rankings is the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning have taken care of business. Their fault is they're in the Central Division, and they've had games lost already this season. They've only played 5 games, but they're 3-1-1 to start the year. They have a +4 goal differential. They're one of those teams. Their power play right in the middle of the pack. Nothing special right now. Penalty kill right in the middle of the pack. But again, they've been taking care of business. They have the skill. They have the goaltending. What more could you want? In that Central Division, I'm kind of shocked they are where they are. Honestly, at number 3 in this week's power rankings is probably high. But I'll give them that credit, the benefit of the doubt. That may have to change, though, next week if this keeps up for the Tampa Bay Lightning. At number 2, as we get over 35 minutes into this power rankings, at number 2 is the Montreal Canadiens. Guys, the Montreal Canadiens are for real. They are for real right now, and we're seeing that on full display. 8th best power play in the NHL at over 30%. Penalty kill 17th in the pack, nothing great. They're finally seeing the grapes of the benefits of having those young guys come into their system. Those Pacioretty trades and all that stuff, they're finally reaping the rewards of that. Nick Suzuki, been a world beater. Alexander Romanov, been a world beater on the back end. Carey Price and Jake Allen, despite Carey Price struggling here to start this season, it's being overlooked because the team's winning games, and Jake Allen has been a good backup in the struggles of Carey Price, so it takes away from Carey Price's spotlight a little bit, which he probably doesn't like too much, but let's be honest, he kind of needs it right now. And this team is just finding ways to score goals. They're scoring shorthanded goals. Tyler Toffoli scoring like a maniac right now. I think he has 7 goals on the season. One of the top point producers in the league. Nick Suzuki freaking bodying up Elias Pettersson. Like, what more could the Habs want right now? Romanov has been taking care of business on the back end. He's looking like a really solid player, along Ty Smith as one of those better defensemen right now in their rookie seasons. Just a lot of excitement for this team. I just want to see more of these guys, and I got to admit, the Montreal Canadiens are my hype team in the Canada division right now. So that means at number 1, once again in this week's power rankings, is the Vegas Golden Knights. The Vegas Golden Knights hold the top spot. They are playing well. They're 5-1-1 on the season. They have a +6 goal differential. They're just doing what they have to do. And, they have those weird games like last night against St. Louis, who I think is going to be a real contender in that division. In the preseason rankings, I didn't have them as a good team. I will admit so far, I was wrong about St. Louis. I thought they would regress this season. I didn't know Binnington would be all that great. And Ville Husso, there's been issues there. But they're inconsistent. They lose to LA 6-3. Vegas is another team. They lose to Anaheim. They lose to Arizona. What are you doing here? But I think the Vegas Golden Knights have a lot of promise. they lose to St. Louis and Arizona. Those are their two losses. My bad. They didn't lose to Anaheim. But Vegas they're playing Vegas hockey, baby. And the goaltending's been good. Robin Lehner, Marc-Andre Fleury. Doesn't really matter who's in between the pipes. They're scoring goals from everywhere. Shea Theodore getting on the board. Just a lot of excitement for this team. They continue to develop really solid players. They bring in talented players like Alex Pietrangelo in free agency. They want to win a cup, and they're showing it right now with their power rankings, and the proof is in the pudding, guys. So, guys, that is it for this power rankings. Let me know what you think of my Week 2 power rankings in the comments section down below. And if you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, you want to see the latest news around the NHL, you guys know what to do. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. Make sure to check us out every Friday night at 6 p.m. for the latest power rankings around the league. Make sure to stay tuned for that next week for Week 3. Guys, I'll see you next week. Have a great week, and let's go Habs.